Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Seeking Higher Education in the US webinar organized by OECS and EduFund. We have two extremely uh, important panelists with us. So we have Mr. Arindam Gupta and Professor PM Satyanarayan with us. Thank you so much for joining us, our panelists. I want to start off with a little introduction about our panelists. So I'll start off with Professor Satyanarayan first. Professor Satyanarayan is an international education specialist who has over 25 years of experience working in the academic level and professional level in international education, both in India and abroad. The OECS team that is led by Professor Satyanarayan is well versed with admission process of designated countries and visa immigration procedures, and they've helped hundreds of students over the years to achieve their dreams and study abroad and take extremely beneficial career paths. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Arindam Gupta, who's the co-founder of EduFund. Arindam has worked extensively in the financial services sector. He's been exposed to both Wall Street as well as the Indian mutual fund space. He completed his bachelor's in mathematics from Indiana University and his master's in finance from Princeton University. His entrepreneurial spirit is a result of great desire to empower Indian parents and transform the academic system to facilitate equal higher education opportunities for all students. Arindam's deep understanding of the financial liabilities of higher studies led to him building EduFund as a one-stop solution for all education needs of all geographies. Thank you, Arindam, for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And we look forward to our session with Dr. Satyanarayan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Taib, for your wonderful introduction.
Yes, sir. So over to you. Let's begin.
All right. Good evening, everyone. And it's a Sunday. I think some of them must be relaxing and some probably will be having some kind of thought process is what this whole webinar is going to be. Let me start with a proposition. I normally tell my students that we have around 10 billion people on this planet. 10% of them enjoy the best of everything, the best of education, the best of medical care, the best of entertainment, the best of clothing, the best of lifestyle. And the rest, 90%, also want to enjoy the same. So how do you resolve this problem? Today, we are in a hyper circle, and this hyper circle constantly moves, bringing changes. Some are predictable and some are unpredictable. So it gives a lot of room to people like me, researchers, thought process individuals who possibly think how the world is going to be. I'm basically a futurist, and I believe more about what we can predict, although prediction becomes too difficult, but somewhere down the line, we could be able to anticipate. This happens in all the spheres, including education. Before the COVID, how many of you really knew about online education? How many of them actually took up online education? Maybe some, but not the vast majority. Today, it has become a natural choice. So when you talk about internationalization of education, the very fundamental principle under which it works is believe in change and be obstinate to accept the change and move again and again to achieve success. The topic of today is pretty interesting. And when I was asked to speak about why study in the US, let me talk for a few minutes, why study abroad? Why not in our home country? Well, I would possibly not make a comparison. That is not right. but I'll probably try to tell you what makes this as a difference. When you look out for a study abroad, the first fundamental thing is, how does the entire pedagogy of your educational system different from what you are learning today? I'm a firm believer of those people who believe in disrupting the conventional thinking. So when you leave this country and move to any of the developed countries, and US being number one, what makes this country so popular? The first and the foremost is US is an open society. People consider that it is a land of opportunities. Now, what makes you think it's a land of opportunities? It means that everyone, irrespective of caste, culture, ethnicity, have an equal opportunity to grow, to develop, and to contribute. So US is known as a land of opportunities, which allows every individual who enters the country to find a pathway towards success. But remember, it is not an easy cakewalk. If you want to climb the Mount Everest, you don't have a straight road. You need to go zigzag, move up and down, and finally reach the Mount Everest. Similarly, when you're talking about US education, fundamentally, I would say, you're talking about quality. You're talking about competence. You're talking about people with different ideas. So the first thing what I would say, number one, is a very robust curriculum structure. Let me give an example how the curriculum structure is designed. Whenever a curriculum is to be designed for any discipline, the first thing the university or the department, they do not call the people from the academics. They call the people from the industry and ask them, what is the roadmap you have built for the next 10 years? What kind of people you require? Then they call the people from the government and ask, what is the roadmap you have for growth for our country? And then they call the academicians and say, you need to build a structure that will facilitate all the stakeholders so that every individual becomes an important asset to our nation. So the curriculum that is designed is industry driven by the thoughts, by the economy, by the country, by the stakeholders who want to evolve this system. Second is value-based education. So when you talk about value-based learning, the learning process is not stereotype where you only acquire knowledge. There is a large component of actually exercising your knowledge in actual application. So almost 80% of your classroom learning is interactive. So everybody has to become stimulus, participative. So naturally your communication skills, your English language, your way of interfacing with other students from other countries becomes an important aspect of your total personality. A place where you study with passion. I always believe that if you want to choose a career, choose what is passionate to you. It need not be something what is relevant today. Like I remember one of the CEOs of the top companies in the US, he mentioned that my daughter told me in the dining table in the 9th standard, so I want to leave the school and I don't want to continue the education. And he said, okay, fine, go ahead. Now, will an Indian parent do this? Because the child had a passion to do something in creative art. So it is not we go with conventional learning that one has to go through the process of a conveyor belt. You complete your education, then only you become successful. If you see the history of the scientists, researchers, even some of the people who got Nobel Prize, you will be astonished that they probably have not really gone to a regular institution. So it's a passion that drives you. A place where innovation and ideas are not only nurtured, but recognized. I always say Silicon Valley is not a place, but a culture. It's said that many seeds are sown, many seeds die, but few remain and make large corporations. That's how Silicon Valley is known as. It's a place where there is challenging workforce with a conducive culture. That's very important. The work culture is so conducive that it sensitizes you to achieve new milestones. Next, please. So you look at US as a destination. What makes the place more so unique? Assume that you have a class of 50 to 60 students coming from almost 50 nationalities. When you study in our country, it's almost all coming from a single nationality, but from different religions. But if you have a student coming from Mexico, from Argentina, from Japan, from Korea, from London, from all parts of the world, this is again a great opportunity to understand culture. And I believe very strongly that intercultural learning is a part of a learning curve. High quality of education. The quality of education is standardized not just by the institution by itself, but it has been vetted by the industry. So when you're talking about quality ranking, when you're talking about how this university gets accredited, there's not a single component that makes it. They have been vetted by all areas, and particularly I will talk about research and innovation. Industry relevant curriculum, which I've already discussed. Diversity of disciplines. Believe me, there are more than 300 different ways in which they have been teaching subjects. When you talk about engineering per se, and mechanical engineering or electrical engineering or computer science, it is not just basically the subject. It can be brought down to many, many, many areas, and everything is interfaced. So you have what is called interdisciplinary learning, multidisciplinary learning. A student of computer science learns psychology. A student of engineering learns economics. Now, this is how it works. So it allows people to choose subjects of your choice and try to make it more robust and makes it much more thought-provoking. So if you talk to a student, you will never student finding a stereotype of learning and what is designed. The student has to design his own timetable. This is the biggest difference you find between India and the Western countries. One community and overall development. Everybody believes in one single community. We are all one. We are all global citizens. And we believe in building the entire planet for sustainable development. And when you think about this, and when you build this in you, you build confidence. It is an inclusive learning. So when you have a kind of skill that gives not only the demand to meet the demands of the labor market, but also makes you to understand how you can work in different situations with different cultural diversities. That is what is needed today and in the future. So higher employability, the chances of you becoming more competent, you're being hired by companies, and there is a great chance for a vertical growth in a short duration. You don't have to really wait for 10, 20 years to come up on the top. You probably see young CEOs running $1 billion business. And commitment to quality output. The bottom line is quality underscores the entire process of education. So US education stands out as a value-based or value for the money you spend. So people consider that it benchmarks the quality standards required for an individual, not only in terms of academic output, but in terms of overall development of a personality. Next. Next, please. So when you're looking at the entire process, you need to really see that they are talking about the best quality. So when best quality has to be matched, it has to be matched with the eligibility also. So whenever I tell my students when they come and tell, so I want to go to America, I want to go and study in this country, then I ask the student, fine, that's great. But do you know that US standards have certain parameters? What about your writing skills? What about your speaking skills? What about your listening skills? What about your overall knowledge space in the domain? This is what they require. So the eligibility standards is not only marked by percentage of marks. Please remember, many times I've heard professors from Harvard and the Ivy League saying, we take a mid-tier student, but we probably see the spark in him because he has great ideas. So eligibility standards does not mean you get a very good score in SAT, a very good score in TOEFL, and academically strong. If you say I got a 90%, I'm great, they don't believe in that. Please remember, they will believe in what you can make a constructive contribution to the classroom learning. How you interact in the class, what is your participation? What are your aims and objectives? How do you like to bring a social change in your own peer group? That's how they understand you. So when you get your grades, you are evaluated. Your evaluation is not merely in classroom writing. 20% to 25% max is your writing skills they see. But the major component, 75%, comes through your overall participation, interaction, assignments, and the way you also connect yourself, network yourself with your entire class. So eligibility is a very important part. More focused and dedicated study. We're talking about focus. It's important that all of you, maybe you are in the 12th grade, maybe you are a graduate. I would love to make this point very clear that try always to do what you are passionate about it. You may fail because I believe in failures and I advocate failures, but there are two kinds of failures. One is a smart failure and is a dumb failure. So even if you have failed, you can still try, because I would say the willingness to fail gives you the ability to succeed. So you need to be focused in your direction, focused in your thought process, and be very dedicated. Whatever you do, put your best. Do not do it with just kind of, giving a cosmetic touch to that. You will never be successful. Evaluation is based on multiple assessment. This is what I said. How do you present yourself in the class? What are your communications? How do your communication skills really contribute to the classroom learning? Outside, project work, everything is being notified and accounted. And that's how your entire assessment is made. Must work under pressure. You will please remember that studying in the US, maybe at the undergraduate, maybe at the graduate level, is not something you just do it what you say, do it in our country. You need to be serious. You need to be on time. You need to submit your assignments on time. Time management is the key. The moment you delay your assignments, you get minus marks. You may not be even allowed to even submit your assignments. So you need to work under pressure. You may be given a great task, but you need to understand that's where you take more responsibilities. Compete with students across the world. I told you, you have students coming from 100-odd countries. Cultural shock, yes. You will really find people coming from different nationalities. Their methodologies are different. Their talking style is different. So you get to know how the system works. So if you're working in a competitive world, you need to understand this cultural diversity and get adapted to the system. So when you're talking to an American, talking to a Japanese is not going to be the same. It's going to be different. But that's how you learn, how you broaden your horizons. Need more hard work and self-realization. Hard work has no substitute, but along with hard work, it has to be a smart move. Please remember, self-realization, self-introspection is very, very important. Many times I ask the students who come to me, tell me 3 not so good things about you and 3 good things about you. Many times they just wonder, what are the 3 good things in me? Because they have never done a self-introspection. But this is what you're going to see there. And above all, you're going to do everything on your own. So it's going to be independent decision-making. You're going to be on your own and you're going to live on your own. Nobody's going to help you. Like what you do here, you ask somebody to do it for you, it's not going to work. If you do, someone is helping you in a project and that is known by the professor, you're going to be debarred from the college or the university. So never ever think of doing that. So independent living, I think that's very important. Next, please. Confluence of talent. When you talk about talent search, the talent bank, that's what you see there. You find young people, innovators. When you go to the Silicon Valley itself, you'll probably see how young people have diverse thought process. Everybody works from different areas. And that's how you see the real talent being demonstrated. Exciting career opportunities and work opportunities. One of the key questions students do ask me, my parents are putting a huge investment on me. How much can I assure them that I will possibly able to return that money back? It's $1 million question. What really drives you to get into a job? The workforce in the US is not something what you see in our country. By and large, the workforce requires people who not only have a domain knowledge, but have a futuristic thinking. Like I tell my student, look at the world in 2030, 2035. Be futuristic, extrapolate the past and invent the future. And that's how the world is going to be. So when you're talking about work opportunities, you need to build your own personality. Nobody's going to tell you. So the whole, I would say, cycle of your learning in 3 or 4 years for your undergraduate and 2 years of master's is going to be rigorous. Every day you need to make that change. Every day you need to network with people. Every day you need to see what opportunities are coming out, how you can build your own skills. If you get 93%, don't be flabbergasted. You got another guy with 95%. You got another guy with 98%. So competition can be from point to point. So when you are talking about career and work, your GPA, your graduate point average, have to be certainly much above the requirement. So if you say that in a scale of 4, which is like 100%, if you get something about 3 on a scale of 4, nobody's going to look at you. 3.5, okay. But if you get anything about 3.75, chances are brighter. 3.85, no, most of the times you will be called for an interview and you could be selected. So your GPA is very important. Not that the name of the university. Do not be carried away by the name of the university, but be very clear that is your GPA that's going to carry you for your workforce. You may go to a mid-tier school. You can go to a community college. I would say community colleges are equally good like universities. And I would say for an undergraduate students, just go to a community college. You cut down your cost by almost 50%. And you do possibly 2 years down the line, go to a university. You have the same quality, same faculty, okay? And then upscale yourself. Scholarships are based on merit, performance. And so your work opportunities, attractive place to study, play, and work. I always say, it's a place where you see innovation of the next generation is seen. US is the only country probably in the world which allows you to possibly see the next generation technology. And it not only does, but it allows international students to participate. So whenever there is a participation in projects, industry-driven projects, capstone projects, do participate. That's where your learning curve comes. And it's also a place to make your life to enjoy. It's not just work, work, work. It should be work built with some kind of curricular and non-curricular activities. Then you make a balance, okay? When you make this, you connect with people, okay? And when you do this, your overall development is higher. Because when you're talking to the employer, and if you're shying away, I don't think he's going to take you. So you need to be more proactive. You need to understand the language. You need to listen, be a good listener. And you need to also see how a person reacts, the body language. Safe environment. It's definitely a safe environment because the law speaks by itself. Whatever you see through media, whatever you see on papers, do not take it as a gospel. We see that almost in every part in our own country. So when you're talking about safety, you also need to draw a line that you cross the line, you become a victim to that. But if you keep yourself safe, come home safe, do things that are not warranted, I think it has an excellent environment. And lastly, it has an opportunity to grow faster than what you can actually imagine. The salary structure in the US is certainly much, much attractive. It not only allows you to get a good quality work culture, it also gives you the top-end model opportunity to enjoy a materialistic life. So buying materialistic resources can be possible even when you are an undergraduate student and you've completed your bachelor's degree. So I would say all this will come as not just advantages, but a long-term benefits that you can accrue over a period of time. Next. So what do you do? How do you start with? I'll probably go a little quicker here. So first is every student I would seriously talk on, please check the curriculum. Do not just go by what is the name. You need to look at how many majors, how many minors, what are the electives, and whether you can interface those electives as per your choice. Level of knowledge content, application, and research content is very important because these are the three components of learning. Co-op programs. Most of the times, the companies have a kind of an interface with the universities where your last year can be a co-op program. You actually work in the industry. And that's a great experience. When you select a university, do not go only by curriculum and the name of the university. Also look at the faculty background, which is very important because most of the faculties are doing a lot of research. They might be working in some labs in the industry. And if they find that you are a very interesting person, they can connect you. It's all through connect. America works with connections. Infrastructure support. They have a state-of-the-art of technology. You have the best of infrastructure in almost all the universities. Otherwise, they don't get the accreditation. Small classrooms. So it's more proactive. Because of the small size of the class, you can interact with your own peer group as well as with the faculty. So in fact, you know the professor knows you by your name. Teacher-student ratio is 1:13 to 1:17 max. So that's a very small number. The number of credits and a grading system I explained to you, they have what is called a GPA grading system, but it's grade point average system, which is in a scale of 4. So every subject what you take, every course you take is based on credits. Usually you have something about 120 credits for an undergraduate, and you have about 36 to 40 credits for a graduate program. Now, this is split into semesters. So every semester is of 6 months. Some have what is called quarterly system, which is for every 3 months. So depending on the university, depending on the discipline what you take, you have differences. A little time on standard tests. TOEFL and IELTS are testing of English language. A good score of TOEFL, when I say good score, if you probably get something about 100 out of 120 in your TOEFL, I would consider you're a good student, and the university will definitely take that into note. And IELTS, do not score less than 6.5. They're not going to look at your applications. A good score. 7 and above, 7.5 will be decent, 8 will be great. SAT has two aspects, the quantitative, the mathematical, as well as the English. So you need to again look at SAT scores more reasonably. Most of the students usually do little lower in the verbal section, in the English section, than the quantitative section. But try to see that you maintain a good score of 1400 plus, you have a great opportunity. GRE is for graduate students only. The GRE score is an important component. Students do get scores in mathematics, that is quantitative, but in terms of verbal section, it starts sliding up. Any score above 320 will be great out of 340. I think that's an excellent opportunity for you to get scholarship. GMAT is only for students who want to do a business program. When you want to do a GMAT, which is up 800, so anybody's getting 650 and above is decent, 700 is good, 750 is great. You not only get a call from an Ivy League, you'll also get a scholarship. Academic criteria and the overall competence. Normally, academic consistency is very important. It's not that you score in the final year more marks and on the other year, last 3 years, 4 years, you've been sliding down. That's not going to be. The last 2 years are very important. So you need to see that you do not have backlogs. A good US university, if it sees more than 3 to 4 backlogs, I don't think they will look at you very carefully. But if you have no backlogs, your case is first. You have 3 backlogs, okay. But if you have more than 5, 7, 8, I don't think a good school will ever look at you, your application. So avoid any backlogs. Try to work hard to see that you maintain that balance in your, whichever the discipline, engineering or business. I would see that academically you need to be consistent. What is overall competence? Suppose you've got an excellent academic score, but you're not done anything related to research. Maybe you're not done any research papers, you're not worked on projects. That's not going to be looking very successfully a good applicant. So balance both academia and your extracurricular activities. That will be a good application to be considered. Next, please. So you could possibly, when you look at the colleges, look at appropriate program. The cost of the program is important. Location is certainly important, but not the very, because everybody talks about California, New York, and Washington are not the only places in the US. You can go to Nevada, you can go to Atlanta, you can possibly go to Minneapolis. So all are great places. Cultural mix is important. Teacher-student ratio is okay. Financial aid. The financial aid is based on merit and need-based. The student got a good, excellent academic record, a good SAT score. When I say good, anything above the 80 percentile, the chance of getting financial aid is quite strong. But if you don't get it, does not mean that you will never get it. Your first year, first 6 months can be a good starting point where you can start getting some funding automatically. Okay, so financial aid is a continuous process. So some students get it before they go, get the I-20. Some people get after they reach the campus. Both are possible. So make your application strong, make your essay strong, try to be honest in your SOPs, try to be honest in your presentations. That will certainly work. And always give them a good story and your failures also. On-campus living and on-campus facilities are different. On-campus is certainly safe. You can go anytime inside for a library, but at the same time, off-campus can be done maybe after 1 year for undergraduate students. Postgraduate students, master degree students can either use an on-campus or off-campus. The cost of living in off-campus is definitely lower than on-campus. Security measures in living conditions, as I've already spoken, I don't think I would like to repeat on that. Next, please. Well, what's next? Set your goal, set your area of focus, narrow down your interest. Do not broaden. Don't keep too many options. It's not going to help you. Narrow down your options. Make those options realistic. Immerse your passion. If you are a design specialist, look into that area. If you are interested in architecture, look at that area. It's not that every discipline has to be looked in terms of highs and lows. I have students who's a painter who has gone to Boston and sells his painting for $5,000. I have a musician who converted a saxophone with Indian classical music, has got the national award. So every discipline is good. Do not just go by conventional disciplines. Research independently, very, very important. I give a lot of importance to independent research. Do not keep asking people. Do things yourself, fail, but that's your learning curve. Start 6 months to a year. A year will be good, minimum 6 months. If you do too short, you're certainly not going to do and run down in the last moment, not getting the right people. And be more futuristic in your SOPs, be more focused in your SOP. In fact, when you write an SOP, divide them into 3 parts: your past, your present, and your future. The future is more holding good to the admissions committee than what you have done. Next, please. Okay, so I think moving this, talking to a counselor, the financial aspect is very important. Prepare your funding in such a way that you cover at least your basic funding requirements. I will leave to Arindam to speak on that because he's an expert on that. But I would certainly say that if your parents plan well, if you make an early beginning, right, even 4 years to 5 years, 3 years before, it's not a bad idea. Begin early so that you don't enter into complications later. But if you think that you can follow this mechanism, what I've been able to give you in this few time, I'm sure that you should be able to not only get into a good school, but you should be able to upscale yourself and enjoy in a country which has produced the finest Nobel laureates, the finest researchers, and has its currency as the most acceptable currency in the world. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any Q&As, I'll be more than happy to take up. I will stop at this point. Maybe I could take a few questions. Thank you.
Good evening.
Arindam, do you want to? Yeah.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. This is Arindam. I'm one of the co-founders of EduFund. And to complement what Dr. Satyanarayan said, so if we can split this session into 2 parts. So what Dr. Satyanarayan was talking about so far is the academic credential and how do we select a university, upscale ourselves and get into whatever is the best fit university for ourselves. That was my take of it. And the other track, which is often neglected till very late, is the financial aspect of education. So whenever we talk of quality education, be it India or abroad, one thing that often surprises most parents is just how expensive education is. So if you, just look around in your own social circles, a lot of people could not seek the best education, not just because they could not get admitted to a good university, simply because they had no means, no financial means. So that's what we intend to address, what I call the financial burden of quality education. So what are the traditional ways of going about it, right? So a lot of people, and it's a very popular choice, is student loan, right? Uh, so student loan, as I said, is extremely popular. However, one of the problems that happens with student loan is unless you get into a really, really good university, it's never 100%. And my personal belief is student loans in India are still pretty expensive. Most student loans are upwards of 12% per annum. So because of this feature, student loan cannot be your first line of attack. They can be a second line of attack. We at EduFund, we do student loan as one of our verticals. And what we see is nearly 5% people qualify for loans simply because, as I said, most people need a collateral also. Real estate can be a collateral, but not land. And it has to be title free. The second part that we prefer is, before we even get into the loan aspect, is look at savings, right? Because savings is something that you control. Remember, when you talk of scholarship, when you talk of loans, both of these you don't control. You could be a brilliant student, but you can still never anticipate and plan the exact amount of scholarship. Nobody can do that. Nobody. You can apply for it, you can put in your best effort, but you can never plan for scholarship or the exact amount. So these are the two factors which are beyond your control. But what you can control is start saving. And today in India, we have a very vibrant mutual fund industry, which is giving you fantastic returns across funds. So you are getting as much as 8% in some of the conservative funds per annum to as much as 20% in some of the aggressive funds per annum. And this over a long period, as Dr. Satyanarayan mentioned, if you can start early, and that's another question I get asked, when should we start saving? As soon as you have a child. I mean, remember, going to college is a defined event. Most people will go to college at the age of 18. So as soon as you have a child, start saving. And even a small amount of money, 7,000, 10,000, 8,000, that will go a long way if you keep saving for 10 years, 12 years. And one thing that we've done at EduFund, and Tayyab, if you can help me with the link, people often get confused, how much do we need to save? What are the ways of saving? When do we start? What we have done is we've put a college calculator on our app. It's very comprehensive, and it will actually throw you the price of education. And once that is done, is when you know exactly, as per your intent and aspiration, how much does your education cost? And it could be different from your neighbors or your cousins because it's a plan made for you. And then once you know that, you can actually chase that plan with some of the curated investment plans that one of my colleagues, Neeraj, he's a doctorate from IIT, he has curated. So that's one of the things that EduFund intends to do. We plan to make this journey of the financial part a little easier. And last point is, a lot of people in India also save through real estate. While that has traditionally worked, one of the problems with real estate is that it's very lumpy. And when you want to sell, it's often hard to sell and you never get as much money. I mean, anybody who has actually done a real estate transaction will tell you how true this is. Yeah, that's from us at EduFund on the financing part. Please do visit our app, download the app, play on the calculator and see what are products that we have. We are SEBI regulated and we don't charge any commission or brokerage. Everything is free.
Thank you, Arindam. Thank you, sir. Before we move on to the questions, so all the questions would surely be answered. I just want to mention that this session was very wholesome. So it covered a lot of ground. But if you want a session that is just for you, an individual session with Sir and Sir's team, you can go to the EduFund app and just opt in for and register for a session. And then you can have a session that's only for you, and there's proper guidance provided. So, Sir, Arindam, we can move on to the questions now. We have Maddie Devi Prasanna, who asks, "Good evening, sir. Now I am pursuing BSc Computers. I want to do masters in US. So can you suggest me the universities as well as suggest me topics which is related to computer science?"
All right, the question is for me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hello. The question says, if I understand it, person is doing a BSc course in computer science and want to pursue a master's. Yes. A BSc course, if the course is for 3 years undergraduate, then it covers only the 15 years of education, whereas US looks for 16 years of education. So generally, most of the American universities will look for a 16 years model. But there are some universities, there are certain colleges in the US would also accept a 15 years model. It goes case by case, number one. Number two is, in case you don't fit into the undergraduate to graduate program with a 15-year model, what are the options available to you? One, you possibly can go and do a 1-year postgraduate course or a 2-year postgraduate course in your own country, that's in India. And then if you still think that you want to move on, that's possible. You can take a 1-year completed course in the master's that covers 16 years and still can go and apply for a master's course. That's as far as the eligibility is concerned. Coming to the computer science stream, I wouldn't know how much of computer component is covered in your BSc curriculum, but if I look at 10, 15 years from now and how the computer space is moving on, the areas that I possibly forecast in 2030 plus is more towards AI and machine learning, IoT technology. That would be in the whole programming and in the intervals of using AI model or automation. And if you're looking from the other side using business, then I would say another area which is going up is data science, big data, data warehousing. And if you probably want to reduce your computing component and increase the business component, then you can go to business intelligence and analytics. In fact, today they are much higher paid. All the top consulting companies hire people who have analytics as a background. But this requires not only the computer knowledge, but it requires a good amount of robust statistics and mathematics. So if you can start learning stats, maybe from fundamental to a slightly a mid-level statistics, I'm sure these areas can be of great importance, because I see this as a growth path for the next 10 years at least. I hope I answered that question.
Sir, we have another question from Sanchit. Can a person from a different field apply for another field for masters?
Such as?
Let's say what does from management to computers or computers to management.
No, a student of computers can go into management, but a student of management cannot go into computers directly unless they have basic background in the computing field. For example, let us say a student of Bachelor's of Business Administration takes up a master's in IT, and he doesn't have an IT space. So he'll be asked to take certain prerequisites, and those prerequisites are IT centric. So he has to move from science, from engineering to business can be a natural extension. But moving from social sciences to technology needs definitely technical background.
Thank you, sir. We have another question from Ashwita. We'll take for the first one from Devi Priya. So for visa, Duolingo English text is sufficient, she asks. Is that sufficient?
This is for the US?
Yeah.
I would say, honestly, all these English language tests make differences in their competency. The best test you should go is TOEFL under ETS. The maximum you can choose alternatively as IELTS, and third alternatives are not really recommended.
So, sir, we have a question from Ashwita. Good evening, sir. I'm pursuing a BA triple major degree in journalism, psychology, and English. Can you please suggest me the best step through which I can take the next step for better future? What all things I can do now for my next step towards PG in US? Also, which are the best universities and where can I apply for scholarships?
Okay, let me answer question number one. Now, you have a triple major. Now, having said the first question, my first question would be, what makes you to take all the three areas together? You got communication, you got psychology, you got English. You probably want to interlink all together. The broader area that possibly I see could be in communication, in mass communication, or media and communication, or print journalism, or media and communication. This could be one area because that is an area which has the English component, it has the psychology component, it also has the media component. So media and communication could be one good option. Psychology is an intervention that understands the human behavioral pattern. You cannot take all this together in psychology, because in psychology, you have the clinical psychology and the social psychology. So if you want to be a psychologist, then you need to segregate the rest of the part. But if you look at a broader spectrum, I would say look at communication. Today, communication is a very important and a more powerful tool. I think that would be great. As far as the universities are concerned, US has more than 4,500 universities. Now it is too, I would say, difficult to stay at this point without seeing your resume or your background, which are the universities. I can only say that look at universities. There are divide the universities into three parts. The top tier universities in the first 100, then the next 50 universities, and the next 50 universities. So you're looking at 200 universities, the first 200 out of 4,000, or in your discipline, at least about 1,000 universities. I think that would be a good choice. But more important, look at the curriculum and look at the cost and the eligibility before you make a selection.
So we take a last couple of questions. One is from Devi Priya. Says, I have completed my master's in clinical veterinary medicine. Now I am in state government service. I want to do higher study in USA. My favorite subject is biology. What course would be best for me?
Now, when you're talking about you already done your master's in veterinary and then you want to go to biology, then the question comes is, are you looking from the animal biology point of view? Are you looking at microbiology? Or are you going to go into vet itself? Now, there are a number of options. If you're going for a clinical part, research part, then the options are different. So what I will suggest is to send you her complete resume and ask her to give her options, what she wants to do. When you say biology, it's a very broad area. All right. So we need to understand how you can interface. From master's, she can actually do a research. That will be much more logical extension rather than doing another course in biology. Okay. So ask her to send the details and I can get back to her. But in case for a generic purpose, I would say that if she's going for a vet, then she could possibly go into genetics, which is a broader area, which can go into vet as well as to human beings.
Thank you, sir. Last question, I think Arindam and you can both take it together. At the time of visa, Neet Jain asks, at the time of visa, we have to show which funds. Can you clarify on it? And the sponsors can be different also, he's asking. Do we have to make separate 2 original sets for documents for visa interview?
Okay, let me go from the last point. Whenever you go and apply for a US visa, please remember the visa officer is least bothered about what documents you bring. He's more interested in what you're going to talk. It's an interview-based visa. So what you're talking will make more sense than what documents you carry. You may carry an amount, maybe about $1 million rupees. They don't care. They will first see whether you are capable of entering USA based on your academic credentials, based on your interest to study the program. As far as the financial documents are concerned, what I normally recommend is the student should be able to demonstrate, I'm using the word demonstrate, that his sponsor or her sponsor should be able to fund the student at least for 1 year in terms of liquid money, which can be shown only through savings, bank deposits, or through an educational loan. No collateral assets are accepted when you talk to the visa officer. As far as the documents are concerned, all documents should be original in case you wish to carry, maybe your passbook, maybe your FD receipts, and maybe a bank's letter saying that you have an educational loan. These are the only 3 official documents any officer might ask you in case he wanted to check your authenticity.
Thank you, sir. We have plenty more questions, but because we're short of time, I would suggest everyone who has questions, please opt for a direct session with sir. Just go on to the EduFund app. The link is in the chat box. You just go there and you can book a session with sir and his team, and you can get the best counseling possible. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on Sunday. Thank you, everyone who joined. Thank you, Arindam, for being with us.
Thank you, Dr. Satyanarayan, to everybody. Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, Arindam. Thank you. It was a great talking to you, and thank you for inviting me for this session. All the very best to the students who connected me, who could not connect me. You're most welcome for the question through EduFund, and I'll be more than happy to answer it. Thank you, and have a great evening. Bye. Take care.